So she went to Stanford, did her MBA, and when she finished, she calls me and says, Olgi, should we start a company together? And my first reaction was, Juanita, I'm almost ready to retire. Why don't you look for someone who's young, who's full of energy like you? And then she said, no, I want to start it with you.
We also sat at the beginning and said, what do we want out of Seccuri? I want to learn better leadership, better sales, and so forth. How can I learn this from you? And Olga, for example, said, I want to see this grow. I want to build something new. I want to help the people. How can I use this Seccuri and my role in Seccuri to learn those?
We speak the same. We laugh the same. If I had longer hair, I would probably look very much like Juanita does. And then we say, we have to tell you that we are not just co-founders. And so we are the first startup ever, daughter-mother in cybersecurity in the world. And we are very proud of it.
Welcome to How I Met My Co-Founder, the podcast where entrepreneurs share raw stories behind how their founding teams met, built trust, and navigated conflict. I'm your host and team relationship expert, Annie Garofalo, and here's your all-access pass into the conversations that can make or break a founding team. Meet Juanita Duque and Olga Botero. Olga and her daughter Juanita are no strangers to mixing business and family. Growing up, Juanita fondly remembers regular dinner table conversation about the merits of certain stocks, or learning from her mother's many executive and board advisor positions, including as former CIO of Grupo Bancolombia, one of the largest financial groups in Latin America. Therefore, it felt like a natural next step in 2022 when Juanita, a Stanford MBA and engineer by training, former consultant, and cybersecurity expert, called up her mother and asked to be co-founders. They came together as equals, with Juanita as CEO and Olga as CTO, to launch Seccuri, a multi-award-winning global cybersecurity skills and talent platform. In doing so, they became the first ever mother-daughter founding pair in the cybersecurity sector. Join us today in learning more about their journey and the pros and cons of founding with a parent. Don't forget to check out takeaways and resources your team can use in the show notes or sign up for our Substack and get them delivered directly to your inbox. I want to kick off with just understanding a little bit more about the story of how you navigated the journey from mother-daughter to coworkers, choosing to work together in a professional setting, and then now as co-founders. Can you share a little bit more about how that got started?
The story started probably 25 years ago. I've always been an executive. I was a CIO of one of the largest financial groups in Latin America. And whenever we sat on the table, the discussion that we had with Juanita and her brother was how was the economy, what the markets were doing, how stock exchanges were doing, who was up, who was down. So our conversation on business started probably when Juanita was 5 or 6 years old. So it's been a long journey.
I always saw Olga as like this woman powerhouse and always really wanted to be like her, working and involved in technology. But how did we get to work together? So I went to study abroad from Colombia. I went to study engineering outside at Purdue and worked a couple of years in consulting in the US. But then I missed my family. So came back to Colombia and was still working at consulting here in Colombia, but in a different company. And this is when Olga first, she came to me and said, why are you not wasting your talents, but why are you focusing your talents somewhere outside? Why don't you join me? And let's start this cybersecurity services portfolio in a boutique consulting firm Olga joined. So this was the first time that we started something together. And it was first her initial outreach. And then we can tell you a little bit about how Seccuri started.
And I was able to convince her. And we had a lot of fun. I think those first years were a lot of fun until she came one day and said, I'm leaving. And we said, where? And then she says,
no, she wasn't involved. You were involved. You were involved.
So she went to Stanford, did her MBA. And when she finished, she calls me and says, Olgi, should we start a company together? And my first reaction was, Juanita, I'm almost ready to retire. Why don't you look for someone who's young, who's all from one of the MBA programs, who's full of energy like you, and start the company with that person? And she said, no, I want to start it with you. So we sat together and we did an ideation exercise in which we said, what problem can we solve? And that's when we found that there was a big issue on skills and talent in cybersecurity, and that we could help and have a purpose of helping people find jobs and create employment. So that's where we are.
I love that. It sounds like there was elements of knowing that the two of you work well together, having that history, and then finding a shared purpose and shared mission and making a change in an industry where you're both really well versed and have worked in, but doing something that feels impactful, and having that shared purpose and mission. Being family and having worked together before starting Seccuri, how did you think about choosing your roles and responsibilities and all of those big questions?
It was quite an easy conversation. And it has been something that we've started to learn as we work together. I said, okay, I know you're in this stage where you want to build something new, but you don't want to manage the team. This is where I come in. So we said, okay, I will be CEO. I will manage the team. You come in as CTO, bring all your knowledge, manage the product, and also as chairman. As we grow the team, then you can be our advisor for everything. But you see, it completely changed. Before it was Olga teaching us. But right now, I think what I mentioned to you before is as a
She's
mother.
my boss. She's my boss.
As a mom, I think she'll always have like this mom hat on, which is kind of fun. I think we can talk about that later.
I'm excited. That sounds like a really interesting way of keeping the boundaries and putting different hats on, and even physically saying that in a conversation. I'm bringing this hat in. I'm bringing that hat in. So I'm looking forward to that. And you mentioned that it was an easy initial conversation and something you continuously think about. Do you have a specific practice or like way of having those conversations, a structured check-in? How do you think about incorporating that conversation in an ongoing way in your day to day?
I think once we enter our office or workspace, whether Juanita is in Washington, D.C., and I'm in Spain, and we are on a Zoom call, I think we switch and we are two colleagues working together to really build a company. We are not mother-daughter. Of course, some days I do make mistakes and I say, Juanis, are you wearing that to the meeting? So my mom's reaction comes out. And even with the team, sometimes I sit with the team and I say, remember, you cannot chew gum whenever you go and visit a customer. Remember, you cannot do that. That's really impolite. So my mom's advice sometimes comes out. However, we understand that there is a role about mother-daughter, which is very different from the role of being colleagues and co-founders.
And Annie, I think also Olga and I, since like, as you see, we've been quite smart on, okay, this is business. But we also just, for example, every 2 weeks, we do kind of a informal huddle. Both of us, okay, what has gone well? What hasn't gone well? Let's strategize also about the business. And something we started early on was, okay, because we're going to change our dynamics and we're starting something super new, completely from scratch. Let's try to do like post meetings or post sessions. What went well and what didn't. So for example, if we spoke to a client, okay, what went well in terms of roles in this situation? What didn't go well? With our angel investors, okay, let's prepare before because we have these roles. So I think that's something we didn't do before that really helped in this situation, especially for me, because it was like, okay, you manage these topics, you manage these topics. You're the one in charge of this, you're the one in charge.
But on the other hand, sometimes, and not everything is pink. I think sometimes we do make mistakes, and there are meetings in which, of course, someone like me who's been in business for so many years, sometimes I kind of take over a meeting that Juanita was supposed to take over, but it comes out naturally. And I know that I'm doing something wrong because she was the one supposed to be leading the meeting instead of me. And sometimes even when we talk to angel investors, sometimes they direct the conversation to me, even though I say, no, but remember, Juanita is our CEO, she will deal with this. I think it's one of the things that we are learning as we go about, and we're learning every day.
Absolutely.
Super true. And I think that has been one of the greatest challenges, especially for me as a leader. But I think I'm quite unique and we could say lucky in a sense that I'm having to manage that so early on. Because as a founder, especially a founder that's if co-founded with someone that has so much experience, both in work, in personal life and everything, learning how to manage that and still show your leadership in a sense, with people that also have that same sort of leadership timing, that has also been a challenge for me, but also very useful.
And one of the strategies that we use is that many meetings that we have with very senior people, I don't go, I don't show up, because I know that if I do, Juanita won't be the person of center of attention. Probably they will be talking to me instead to her. So in many meetings, we prepare the meeting. I give Juanita the tips, even for example, when I know the person well, and then Juanita takes over.
Wow. That is so impressive. And so,
Because I trust her.
yeah, I was going to ask what has allowed you to do that and step back when you feel it's right and encourage Juanita to step up. It sounds like underlying that is a real trust. Are there other elements of your relationship that or your relationship, your personality experience that allow that to be a possibility?
Yeah. I think there are like three adjectives that I would use, or three things that are important. First, it's not just trust. I think it's respect. We are very respectful of each other. The second thing is that we have admiration for each other. I admire a lot who Juanita is, who she has become, and the professional that she is. And I look at her not just as my daughter, because of course moms are proud of their daughters, but as a professional, I can separate that and say, wow, this is a really powerful woman who's leading this company. So I think both of us have that only with the other person. And then I think that the third thing is that we are able to recognize when we make mistakes and talk about it together. So, oh, I managed this meeting and it didn't go well, or oh, I should have done this differently. And both of us share with each other. So we know that neither one of us is perfect and that we are learning as we go. So I think those three things have helped a lot.
The trust and respect, the admiration, and it sounds like that third element of the ability to repair. Like if something happens that puts one of you in unease, you have the relationship where you can give that feedback and trust that it will be well received. And I think that is something that's really important for co-founders, all co-founders to have. Because there's so many stressors, so many things going on all the time. You will never be able to show up perfectly 100% of the time. And having a relationship where you know that you are getting honest feedback from your partner and that will be well received is absolutely critical to growing as a leader, as a company, and as a team generally.
And we are not short term. I think this is also a big difference from other startups. I know that um, I'm co-founding a startup at this point in my career. What I'm really trying to do is give everything that I have inside and everything that I have learned and every knowledge that I have to Juanita, because I know this is long term. This is her path, and probably in 20 years, Seccuri will be Juanita's, not. I might not be there. So this is long term, and this is all about helping each other and learning from each other, and me making sure that she succeeds.
But I want to touch here. I think you mentioned something really powerful here in terms of what we could say, maybe conflict. I think what has helped us, but also it's a challenge, is I think being mother-daughter, being family, we've known each other in our best and in our super worst. Because I think there's a worse in business, but there's also personal worse. Whenever you're, I don't know, crying for whatever, you see this person in everything, in all senses. So I think that that's very true what you said. You have to be open to that sort of criticism. And because you know everything about that person, you can also target the communication and target what you say and how you say it in the way you know that person is going to mostly adapt.
Absolutely. I have a master's in sociology focused on couples therapy. And one of the frameworks in couples therapy is this thing called the sound relationship house. And the two weight bearing walls of that house are trust and commitment, which it sounds like you raised in terms of trusting each other and respecting each other, and the commitment of knowing that this is long term and that you're building for the long term. And then that first floor, the foundation, is called building maps. And it's exactly what you were referencing. It's building these maps of understanding a person's tender spots, a person's strengths, and communicating in a way to navigate around those so that you can have an effective conversation and effectively provide that feedback. And founding with family members, close friends, someone that you know really well, that foundation can be really, it is already built and can be really powerful. That said, a number of people have different maps personally and professionally. So I'm curious, was there a learning curve in building those professional maps for each other and learning where those tender spots were, not just in the personal sphere, but when conversations and feedback became more professional?
I mean, one of the things that happens when you're a daughter mother, I think, is that all mothers, we try to protect our children. So I'm very protective, especially coming from an environment like Colombia where the security issues has been so strong and things like that. I'm very protective. And and I know that in business you have to make mistakes to learn. So sometimes I do keep quiet and I say Juanita has to try and see how it goes. And if she makes a mistake, she will have to learn from it and not be protective as a mother. So I think that's how we have built these maps of behaving each other and understanding each other. That and another aspect that probably helps us a lot is that we are not competing with each other. That I do see, and I have seen in many cases, co-founders who are really competing, who's best and who's going to do better, and sometimes they don't see each other as a team. We do. I don't have anything to compete with Juanita, and Juanita doesn't have to compete with me. I think what we need is to really make sure that this is a great company, that it grows, that it's sustainable, that we can generate value for our investors, that we do good for the community, all of that.
And I think Annie building these professional maps, we also sat at the beginning and said, what do we want out of security in terms professionally speaking? I was not only building this startup and making this startup successful, but also, for example, I bring up, I want to learn better leadership, better sales, and so forth. How can I learn this from you? And Olga, for example, said, I want to see this grow. I want to build something new. I want to help the people. How can I use this security and my role in security to learn those? So that's something that I remember I brought up because I knew, as you said, Olga has so much experience already in leadership and so forth. I know I have a lot to come in. So I brought in like this need and I tried to create the map from zero.
But on the other hand, Juanis, I think you also are bringing the energy. You're bringing the speed. You're bringing a lot of things that you're at the same time pushing me to be better and pushing me to learn a lot of things. So, for example, managing investors not from a board position, but from a person who's sitting on management and convincing investors. I'm learning a lot because I've been on the other side. And things like that, I think are really fun. And we try to laugh a lot and laugh every day. Sometimes Juanita comes to me and says, put the pink glasses on because I think you're having the black glasses on today and you're saying things so bad. So put the pink glasses on. And with just saying that, we just laugh the entire morning and we can focus and concentrate on work.
That's so beautiful. And where do you think that the shared importance for levity and lightness and laughter comes from? Is that a family value? Is that a company value?
I can bring that in. It's both company value. I think we've tried to make it, yeah, we're building something. It's tough. It's work, technology, but this is what we do every single day. If we're not having fun in a sense, then you're not enjoying what you do many, many hours in the day, especially in a startup that you work more than the standard 9 to 5, we could say. But also, I think we as mother-daughter, and I think through family, we have gone through a lot and seen moments that are good, seen moments that are challenging. Especially, I think personally wise, those are the most challenging moments, is learning how to manage those together. I think that's when we see, yes, work is important, but work is like life is life. We have to have fun. If not, it's going to become a problem that isn't really a problem. You know, there's true problems in life.
And it's like what you're saying. If you're building a company and taking on all that risk, why not make it a place that you enjoy being? and a company culture that feels right and aligns with the values that you grew up with, and making that a really positive time is so important. And finding teammates who also value that and who also want to kind of create that environment and work within it. One question I have is, when I think about the cybersecurity industry, I think about it as an intense place. Whether it's the industry itself and the risk associated with it. There's also the fact that it's majority male dominated in a lot of places, and so I'm curious how you think about almost protecting the values that you so strongly hold in a space that maybe there might feel like tension between being able to have that and the standards or current dynamics of that industry and space.
I think two things have come to my mind when you ask that. The first one is, I think because I was brought in an age and a time in which I was probably always the only woman in the room, I do admire and I do value diversity, and we have a very diverse team in our team. And that's something that helps us a lot whenever we have to deal with a customer that it's all male, that we have to go and talk to a CISO or we have to talk to the person in HR. It's not just about skills and talent. Because sometimes they challenge us, like, are you guys really know about cybersecurity? And then we know that in the consulting firm, we've been doing assessments on cybersecurity for companies and in big customers, energy companies, financial services. We've done all of that. So we can talk tech if they want us. And we top tech. And I think that has gained us a little bit of respect. That's the first aspect. Probably the second one is that one of the things that we discover, cybersecurity does require a lot of hard skills and very vertical, deep skills, but they also need soft skills. They have to learn how to communicate well. They have to learn how to, for example, work under pressure, as you were saying. We have seen that what is required from either one is this hard skills and soft skills combination that we are trying to solve.
And I think that's super true. Whenever I go to like startup in cybersecurity meetings or meetings in government related to cybersecurity, I'm usually still one of the only women in the room. This is where I have learned with Olga, hey, how do I manage these conversations whenever I'm maybe the youngest in the room, or the only female, or the only young female. And I think being this, we could say, unique in the field, we learn how to use it in our benefit. For example, RSA, that's one of the largest cybersecurity conferences that's out there. Like, because we're so different, they remember us and say, oh, right, you're the startup that does this, built by two women. Oh, yeah, I remember you. So I think it has been useful for us to like be remembered as well and use that to our advantage.
Absolutely. Use it as a way to stand out.
One of the things, Annie, is we don't share the same last name because in our country, women do not change their last name when they get married. So I never adopted my husband's last name, not even with a hyphen, nothing. Botero and Juanita has her dad's last name. And sometimes people just get to meetings and it's Olga Botero, Juanita Duque. They are two people not related.
But that they see us. Yeah. And it's like, no.
And we speak this, we speak the same. We laugh the same. If I had longer hair, I would probably look very much like Juanita does. And then we say, we have to tell you that we are not just co-founders. We are also, Juanita says, I'm Olga's daughter. So we are the first startup ever daughter-mother in cybersecurity in the world. And we are very proud of it. And then that's it. And we continue the conversation.
We love to say it. Yeah, it's not hiding it. We love to say it. That's true.
I love that. And it sounds like there's an element of having a toolkit of like a communication toolkit at your disposal. So there's coming in and being upfront about, this is our relationship, and now let's get into the tech side of things. And maybe in that specific environment, not bringing in some of the levity and laughter that you've built into your company, and really reading the situations, what it needs, and being able to pick and choose from that and what a situation needs, and being able to supply that. While also, when it's within your own company, living your truest values and purpose, and making sure that everyone on the team, I guess, has like the norms and the working styles of what you'd want. There's this flexibility in how you lead as leaders in different spaces and different rooms. And I'm curious, in working together as co-founders, have you taken away any unexpected insights?
The story that you shared with Endeavor this week, I think that's one of the big learnings.
Yes. So I think, but from working together, so we're in a project in Endeavor. They asked us what has been your greatest failure as a founder, and as founders we make a lot of mistakes. I'll tell you, I make this great mistake that after I did it, I was like, what did I do? Trying to show that I was a leader to a man who had worked many years in the industry. I made I said something that I shouldn't have. Yes, that was the situation. But I think the most I learned was when I called Olga. I immediately, we'd call each other like, hey, I met this person and we're having this call. She was like, hey, sit down, take a breath. I've done the mistake. I've made mistakes before. What are you going to do about it? It's in the past. Let's move forward. So I think for me, that was one of the greatest learnings, was how great a decision was to build something with someone, first, that knows me, and second, that has so much experience to know that we will make mistakes, but the important thing is to learn from them, because this was a big mistake, and to leave them in the past. Because I think if I had been with someone that was with my same experience level, maybe my same age, we would have stayed like tackling, okay, what do we do? How do we do it? We're still in this problem and still figuring it out. I think that for me was a surprise. I thought you were going to also explode like me. She was like, okay, no, I've done the same mistake. What are you going to do?
So I think we have to practice a lot of patience sometimes. I tell to Juanita, let's do assertive listening. So let's really make sure that we listen to each other. That's a big learning. I think also a big learning is respecting and making sure that we are able to give feedback to each other. So it worked, it didn't work. Again, to have the relationship of a mother-daughter, you're telling your daughter that she did something that was not correct, or a daughter saying, Mom, you treated me in a way that that I don't like. It's very different to give feedback
In business.
to a founder in business. So
Yes.
we're learning that.
And not only respect, I think separating personal from professional in every sense. Whatever someone says in a professional aspect, never take it personally. Even if the person tried to do it personally. That's something that I think we've learned that a lot.
Yes. And it's in service of this company that you're building for the long term, and grounding in that shared vision and that shared goal, and saying, this is what I think is best for that. This is what I think is best for that. And being able to come from a place of similarity and then share your opinions on what you think would reach that goal. And it takes that conversation out of feeling like a personal attack.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think we have also learned that it is important to create rules of engagement. So, and what are those rules of engagement? So, for example, once we are on a family thing, let's not talk business. So we have to make a switch. And I think I learned that many years ago, because in my first job, I worked with my husband at HP in Silicon Valley, in Palo Alto. And we were just married at that time. We were very young, and we created a rule saying, once we leave the building and we get into the car together, we talk married and like a couple. We don't talk, and we talk family. We don't talk about work. And we did that. So we could separate work, and work didn't become our life. That we had a life besides work. And I think Juanita and I have created those rules as well. A very short example. I'm a very morning person. So I always wake up at 5 a.m. I go running. I do a lot of things, and I can be at work at 7. Juanita, on the other hand, is a night person. And she works until very late. She wakes up very late. Yeah, probably I'm always, well,
6 a.m. 6 a.m. for her is late. Now you know how early she is. She's like, oh my God,
but
6. It's so
again,
late.
so one of the rules is like, one of the rules is that we cannot
We
expect
respect.
each other to work on the same schedule. So but we have different schedule. And again, rules of engagement. The same way you create rules of engagement with your teams, and your work people. We have created them as co-founders.
When you said that's something we've experienced a lot is it's not that we don't bring work to the personal, but it's like we change our mindset in that sense. For example, we're in dinner and my dad loves to know, hey, what's going on in the cyberspace? Who got hacked? And we might tell stories. Hey, this happened in the call. And I said this and Olga said that. Oh no, we made this horrible mistake. Or no, we made a great sale. But it's a moment when what we're doing is we won't provide any sort of feedback in family scenarios.
I'm struck by the deep definition that you put. I guess it's clarity. One of the things I recommend for all clients is something I call a social contract. And it sounds like you've done that in a number of ways. And just having these norms that are defined, and sometimes even documentation can help in really documenting what those norms are or articulating them very clearly. Maybe even putting them on your calendar if it's like a meeting, putting them on your calendar and copy and pasting an agenda in there so everyone's on the same page. But it sounds like that, and that's been woven through even since I think the first question I asked. I remember thinking, oh, there's really an emphasis here on clarity and different roles and responsibilities and what those definitions are. And that's very shared.
Completely.
And again, I think we can learn a lot from large families that have large businesses and large investments, because I think one of the things that they do is they create a family charter, and they make decisions on their family offices on what to invest in and when to invest, and then who's going to do the succession planning and things of that sort, or whether the family is involved in the business.
It's amazing. And I'm mindful of time. So to close us out, I'm wondering if you have a piece or pieces of advice to share with someone who is maybe in the early days of founding with a family member or a close friend.
I think I have to always remember this person will always be the personal relationship you have. For example, I always know Olga. Olga will be my mother, but use her professional skills to learn as much as you can and to make the business grow as much as you can. And second, I think this is a person that you will trust and respect the most. This is a relationship that will not break if you have a sort of, we could say, a professional argument. So think about that as something to cherish, and to say that if you're thinking about starting something, you're going to be very lucky. You're going to start something with someone that you know will always have your back, and you will always trust what he or she or they say.
I would probably, the advice that I would give is make sure that you keep the professional, and the family, and do not mix them. And do not let any of the two affect the other. If you cannot do that, do not create a company, do not do business with families. How many families have been destroyed because of businesses and because of investments and because of money? And if for you, family is a priority, if for you, family is the basis of who you're going to have always, as Juanita says. You can change friends because you moved from California to Illinois or to Florida or to New York, but you will always have your family. If you see any risk on affecting one or the other, don't do it.
I love that. All of those pieces of advice are amazing. And also just expanding the possibilities of there is a choice not to. There is a choice to, it's a choice, whether or not you start a company with a family member. And there's a lot to consider before taking that leap. So I just want to also take a moment and thank the two of you so much for coming on and being so open and honest and fun about your journey.
Thank you, Annie. And I also learned a lot from your social
I love that. Yeah, me too. The social contract. That was super cool. Annie, thank you so much.
To think about that.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show this week. Please make sure to click the follow button on your podcast app so you never miss an episode of the show. Do you have a burning question you'd like answered? If so, you're in luck. We'll be concluding this season with an Ask Annie Anything. Submit questions at Confidante, confidante.info/podcast or email podcast@confidante.info. Submit questions by February 20th to be included. I'm Annie Garofalo, and thank you for listening to How I Met My Co-Founder.